Good afternoon, everyone. This is Steve Rao with Radio Nyra, North America's top South Asian Indian radio station, aired on 99.9 FM HD4, 1490 AM, and 101.9 FM. And we are honored today for a special Women's History Month interview to have someone that many of us start our morning with. I know that I do, Renee Chou, who is an Emmy Award-winning journalist and the WRAL co-anchor in the morning news. She's been with WRAL since 2004. Renee, welcome to the show, and it's great to be interviewing you today.
Thank you so much for having me, and I love that you're part of the Early Risers Club.
Absolutely, start my morning every day with you there on the TV set.
We appreciate it. Yes.
Fantastic. So tell me just a little bit. You're such a trailblazer, one of the only, or probably the only Asian woman anchor on major news network here in the area. But tell us a little bit about your background, where you grew up, where you came from, and what brought you to the area.
Sure. So I'm a native of Michigan. I was born in the Detroit area of Michigan. My parents are both from Taipei, Taiwan, and they immigrated to the U.S. In the late 1960s. My dad just wanted to further his education. He decided to get his PhD at Michigan State and then got a job with Ford. He was an engineer and just wanted to stay in the U.S., brought my mom over. And so they decided to have a family here. And so they had my brother and me. And so I grew up in the Michigan area all the way through high school, and then went to the University of Missouri for college. That's where I got my journalism degree, my broadcast journalism degree. My mom says, like, even from when I was in grade school, that I had always said that I wanted to become a reporter. So I guess I'm living the dream here. And I worked in Cedar Rapids, Iowa for my first job there, an ABC affiliate, as a reporter and anchor. Covered a lot of snowstorms, covered the Iowa caucuses, all that. And then I decided I want to change and started looking around for what my next move would be. And turns out it would be Raleigh. And so when I came here for my interview for WRAL, that was the first time that I had ever been to Raleigh, but fell in love with it. I just remember thinking how green everything was, like how, we have all these trees, how beautiful it was. And it's been home ever since. So I've been with WRAL now, almost 18 years. It'll be 18 years in October. That's crazy.
Yeah, I can't believe, that's a long time. Yeah, I was noticing that when I was trying to get ready for the interview, and I could have gone much longer on your bio. I tried to keep it brief, but that's wonderful. And so you came here, you started as a reporter, then you named the morning anchor. Tell us a little bit about, it's Women's History Month, right? What does this month mean to you? And has there been any women figures in your life that have been inspiring to you in your career as you've been a trailblazer here locally?
Sure. Well, first, you're asking me, what this month means to me. I think it's a time of gratitude, to be grateful for the trailblazers before me, to be grateful for all those powerful women who have helped shape our history, right? It's a time of validation and affirmation, to, realize the collective power of women and our potential and what we can do when we have a seat at the table. And it's also a time where I think, because I'm a mom, how I raise my daughter, I want her to be a strong, powerful woman, and what does that look like? And so that's always something that, that I'm thinking about, especially during this time of year, and as far as female role models, I remember when I was younger, where, as little as, grade school, and my parents would always have the network news on, like appointment television. And when I was growing up, Dan Rather and Connie Chung were, the anchor team then, and we had that on in our house all the time. And so I remember watching her, and seeing what she did and seeing someone who looked like me on TV and thought, well, maybe that could be something I could do. And of course, as soon as I said that I wanted to be a journalist when I was growing up, all my parents, Chinese friends, they would always say, oh, you're going to be the next Connie Chung, that kind of thing. They just always associated any Asian American journalist with Connie Chung. But that stood out in my mind as far as something that inspired me when I was little. And then, just growing up, of course, I would always watch a lot of news in college. The Today Show was really big, and that's when Katie Couric was really in her prime. And so I remember watching her and really admired how she, handled interviews and how she could do hard news stories, but then also be very personable and authentic, her authentic self. I like that. I remember Soledad O'Brien. She was also the lead anchor, morning anchor on CNN at that time. This was in the 90s. Really admired her versatility and her skills. And so to this day, I still, as much as I'm on the air, I also try to watch as much news as I can, of course, and then and admire, those who are doing great journalism and great work, and especially the ones who are now reporting from Ukraine and bringing us those news reports from the war zone. It's not, there are a lot of male reporters, veteran war correspondents doing that work, but also you see a number of females in Poland and Ukraine right now reporting. So that's so admirable, and I'm amazed by those women.
Yeah, it's just, and we're gonna go a little longer with the interview because we got to. You're part of the Trailblazer Club, so it's like we're interviewing women trailblazers. So, but how has journalism, over the 18 years you've been in, you've seen just such a change in journalism. From my daughter's a UNC journalism school major, so she's studying digital.
That's right. I remember you told me that.
But digital journalism, the different social media platforms. You mentioned Connie Chung and Dan Rather. When I was a kid growing up, I remember Walter Cronkite. That was the guy that when you come back from school, you would see him there, and you knew you were sort of safe. You connected with him. Now,
the most trusted man in news, right?
Yeah, but now WRAL has become that for me, the local station, someone that I'm familiar with. I like to start my day with you and the team. I like to end my day with you and the team because there's something familiar, because there's so many national networks, right? So how has journalism in your career changed? And then the follow-up is that with the COVID pandemic, you guys have just really had to change the way with Zoom and technologies like we're using today. So what are your thoughts on those two?
Yeah. Well, as far as the change that I've seen in my career, just thinking about how back then, TV was appointment television. There was the 6 o'clock news, 6 p.m. news, and even starting out in journalism, you only had a few newscasts. You had your morning newscasts, and you had a couple of your evening newscasts, to prepare for and to do the live reports for. Well, now, yes, we have newscasts at appointed times, but we have a lot more newscasts, and it's not just about TV; it's digital platforms. We are now 24/7. We are now posting updates and doing updates and things on WRAL.com, on all of our, other digital platforms. Everything, there's no deadline anymore. Its deadline is as soon as you get that information, you're putting it on the air. So the pace of news has really changed. Also, just our news gathering with the advent of social media and the fast-paced information that's coming in with updates, and also verifying sources and what's accurate and what's not. That has all certainly increased at a crazy pace from just even 10, 15 years ago, and then also our ability to go live from anywhere now. We used to have to drive these huge, satellite trucks or microwave trucks, and you have to get the right signal, and you have to do all this. Now, a lot of our live reports, you can just, you can even use it from your iPhone, and broadcast if need be. You can go live at any time. So the change has been dizzying, but it's certainly one of the most fascinating aspects about this industry. You talked about the pandemic, just like every other industry, as far as learning how to pivot and how to keep doing what you're doing, right? But in different ways. So they were able to build a home studio for me for about 2 months during the height of the pandemic. I never would have thought that I would be able to anchor our news from the guest bedroom in my house, but we were able to do it. They figured out a way to do it. As with so many other businesses and industries trying to figure out, okay, how can we adapt? How can we change? But for our industry, the most important thing was being able to stay on the air and still give people the information that they needed throughout the pandemic.
That's fantastic. And a couple more questions. I mean, that's a great, that you've given me something to think about. I mean, one of my favorite journalists is Fareed Zakaria, and he wrote I follow him. I watch him every morning, every Sunday.
Oh yeah, he's fantastic.
Yeah, he wrote a book called 10 Lessons of a Post-Pandemic World. And one of the things he says is that there are decades when nothing happens and there are weeks when decades happen. And that's so true with COVID. And, for example, the distance learning, the Zoom technologies in the old days before this pandemic, even if I were to interview someone like you, it would be so hard. I'd have to come meet you or call you, but now I can see you and interview you. And the same thing has happened with the media, right?
Yes,
So
yes. And even just like how we're doing this interview now, we don't have to be in the same room. We don't have to meet up at a certain spot and then set up all this equipment. That's been another big change with, with our news is we've been able to get all kinds of experts and other people on the air. We can talk to them right away because we can use Zoom, right? Or FaceTime and put them on the air. That way they don't have to be in studio. We don't have to run out to go get them necessarily. That certainly changed our news gathering, definitely.
What are some lessons you've learned from the pandemic about, yourself, about just your team? I mean, you guys, I want to give you guys credit. I mean, you have been so busy covering the news for 2.5 years, all of you, with just the numbers, the cases, the testing. I mean, it was hard enough reporting the news before, but you've been just so overworked, all of you. But what are some lessons you take away from just the last 2 years?
Sure. Well, one lesson is not so much work related, but then also about, the pandemic really puts your whole outlook on life into perspective, doesn't it? And one thing that the pandemic did was it put a pause on so many things that it kind of just slowed life down for a good stretch. And while we missed so many of the things that were so much a part of our normal lives, I think that step back was also good as well, that it was good for the soul to just kind of declutter our lives. Some people were so busy, we're busy with stuff, our schedules are filled with stuff, right? And then when you step back, was that all necessary? Is that worth it? What's really worth it? It really puts into sharp focus. How do I want to spend my time? Who do I want to spend my time with? Where do I want to build those connections? And, when we're in a pandemic and we're shut off from the rest of the world, those connections we crave so much, right? That's where you find who your real friends are, right? And that's where you find, you make those deep family connections and really, go back to those and how important to have those roots. So I think that was one lesson that taught me was just being able to put in a sharp focus. Okay, how do I want to really spend my time and what really makes me happy and what really fills my soul? And so it's good to start thinking about how I want to allocate that time, because time is certainly our most precious resource here.
And my last question is, there's some second grader or third grader or college person or high school, young Asian, Indian, Chinese American, Asian American, watching or listening to this. What advice do you have? You're their Connie Chung. So what advice do you have to those young women out there right now that are listening to this interview in terms of pursuing their dreams?
Sure. Well, I suppose for any line of work, but maybe especially for this line of work, you have to really want it to be able to do it. It's not all glamorous. It's far from glamorous when you start looking behind the scenes, but you have to want it and you have to work for it. And you have to be authentically you and unapologetically you. Don't feel like you have to change your name because, it's hard to say. I mean, these days it's so important to just be who you are, right? Don't feel like you have to look a certain way or check a certain box, in order, to do what you want to do. remember your roots, remember where you come from, remember the people who believe in you, and, you'll be able to achieve what you want to do, no matter what you want to do.
Oh, that's so wonderful. Well, I want to just thank you for being with us today. It's been such a special time. You're a friend, and I'm always get a little nervous when I interview you because you're a journalist, but I think I passed the test. And
Oh, you were
but
great. You're a great
but
interview. I could pick up
but
some tips from you.
no. Oh, gee, thank you. You've made my day. You've made my day. But you brought up a good point as the interview purpose, right? Because I get a lot of young people ask me about, I want to go into politics. I want to go into politics. And I said, the most important question is to ask yourself, why do you want to do this? Because sometimes it's not as glamorous as everyone thinks. There's a lot behind the scenes that you have to do. And it's not about just getting the mic, right?
And just like why you do what you want to do, the why for me is to be able to, help people, to be able to serve the people in the communities in which we live. We live in an Instagram world, TikTok world. People like to be on TV. People want to be in front of the camera. People, there's a lot more to it than that. And that's fine for some people, but, this isn't really about, affirmation or fame or anything like that. It's about, helping people and feeling like you're making an impact, that what you're doing every day for a career is making a difference in other people's lives and being a part of their lives. And so it's one of the reasons I love doing this.
Well, it's been amazing. We welcome, I'll end with this. I want to wish everyone out there a happy Women's History Month. I mentioned the word trailblazers, so many women pioneers. We're going to have Elaine Marshall on the week after next, the first female Secretary of State, Mae Jemison.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm.
And I've been reading, like Oprah Winfrey, the first woman to own her own TV show.
One of my idols, great interviewer.
Mae Jemison,
she's a natural on camera.
She's amazing. Mae Jemison, the first woman of color in space. Serena Williams, Grand Slam champion. Aretha Franklin. And there's a lot out there. Catherine Sullivan, the first female NFL coach. See, the good thing about COVID is I've been able to read more. So
yes. Oh, that's right. More, Same here. Yeah.
There's so many great women, and you are a part of that Trailblazer Club. So thank you all so much for being with us. And we pray for the people of Ukraine. We try to find a way we can help Ukraine. And we pray for any journalists out there in harm's way. But Renee Chou, thank you so much for being with us today. Look forward to seeing you. And please tell your team WRAL, they always have a home in the All-America city of Morrisville.
Okay. Steve, thank you so much. Had a great time and always great to talk with you.
I'll see you Monday morning.
All right. Bye.